Alright, so I posted that video 6 days ago? Something like that. It's out here somewhere. December 30th. What's today? Yeah, 6 days ago. And thunderous success, of course. I think it's like 60 views. Whoa. But 2 people responded to it. I wanted to address those. Since, normally I just type a response. But since I don't have any more than 2 comments, I figured I would just make a video. You already see my face, right? Jeremy Kodo. I'm just thinking Lance Corporal Kodo. Or Corporal Kodo, probably. Seeing as you're an Intel Marine. Probably Sergeant Kodo by the time you fucking get out. Says, I am an ENTP Intel Marine 0331, 3.5 years in. Yeah, you're fucking Sergeant Kodo by now. Unless you screwed up, which you probably fucking did. I have no idea what your MOS score is, so don't judge me. You're spot on about the second in command thing, man. Being solely responsible for something other than myself and my work makes me uncomfortable. But being micromanaged and told what to do literally drives me insane. He's not kidding. It literally drives you insane. Like, you feel like you're losing your mind. ENTPs are weird in that way, I've noticed. If you're an ENTP and you're joining, I'd recommend going Intel. Although I can't stand the military and can't wait to get out, this field is great for us. You get left alone for hours to research broad topics and make kick-ass presentation. I'd love to do the same thing in the civilian world without all the other bullshit that comes with the uniform. Anyway, solid vid, dude. Thanks. Alright. First off, Semper Fi, hoorah, all that good stuff. You got 5 years. When I think about it, it's 3.5 years in. You're looking at 5. That sucks, dude. I signed up to be an Intel Marine. I signed up to be well, you sign up for the field. I signed up for the Intel field, and actually I took a 3-month earlier boot camp date than I would have gone with Intel so that I could go to boot camp early. That switched my MOS field. I switched to the metalworking field and actually ended up an engineer, specifically a welder, which was great. That's a good field over ENTPs as far as I'm concerned. There's so much information for someone of such a low rank to know that you don't get bored with it very quickly. And there's so much like extracurricular stuff you can do. This is actually, okay, so as a response to the Intel field being good for ENTPs, my understanding is that Intel Marines are taught a whole bunch of things in their schoolhouse. And you can tell me if this is true or not, Jeremy. How to gather metadata, and then I don't know, how to give presentations, or how to. Most of the time, they just give people clearance. That's my understanding, at least. That's what we used our Intel for Marines for. They signed the paperwork and hung out and carried a pistol into the vault where we kept all the crypto stuff. Things like that. That's pretty much what their MOS school is about, is the responsibilities of a base MOS, or a base Intel Marine. Everything else they learn in the fleet, which I'm pretty sure they get pretty quick. They deal with, spreadsheets and stuff like that. The information in the military is so fucking compartmentalized that it's insane. You're not going to be getting the launch codes for something, and even if you are, you're not going to realize they're launch codes. There is no chance of that. Like, it's very well compartmentalized. Easier than people think, probably, but it is split up pretty intelligently. And most of it's not nearly as glamorous as people think it is. Okay, so one of the funny things about the Intel field that I observed was people just expect them to know shit. And so they ask them the most off-the-wall, random fucking questions. And, seriously expect an answer. Think that they would know that. Be like, God, I don't even have an example. But they literally get asked the most random questions. In the most serious like tone for something that they have no knowledge about even the topic of whatsoever. Because it makes sense that you would ask an Intel Marine to most people for some reason. Like, information about what kind of drivetrain is in the 7-ton. Like, they just get asked the most random shit. Or, like, what kind of explosives are on the inside of a mortar shell. Like, they just get asked the most random questions. And in at least what I saw, is they kind of like that. They humored people. They would look it up or find the answer and give it to them, if they could. You know what I mean? Or they would brush them off with their cool Intel fucking claim to fame, and just be like, "Oh man, I can't tell you that," even though the real truth is they have no fucking clue. So as far as like being paid to Google stuff, or being paid to look things up on Wikipedia, like that's part of their job. Or at least they consider it that way. As a welder, 50% of my job is working on vehicles, and 50% of my job is like, hey bro, we want a pull-up bar in our office. Or like, I got a hole in the bottom of my Jeep, and it's $300 to get it fixed out in town, but I'll give you a 30 rack if you take 2 hours out of your day. So a lot of my job was doing creative, different, and unusual things, and that was the best part of my job. I love doing that, because you are tackling it's like people are giving you puzzles without a set way to solve it, and instead you just solve it with whatever tools you have. And that was a really, really cool thing that I think is good for people like us. But yeah, I would agree. Intel's probably the best MLS for us because it's like you get paid to Wikipedia stuff. However, I do want to point out your sentiment. I can't stand the military and I can't wait to get out. This field is great for us. The can't stand the military, can't wait to get out. Don't ever accept that attitude. I wanted to say that, but I never spoke that out loud while I was in. Fanaticism is fun and it makes your life easier. Just give in to the hoorah attitude. Give in to it. Don't fight it, man. You're not gaining anything from fighting it. Tell people, just focus on the fact that you're one of the hardest motherfuckers on the planet. Whether or not you like it, you are. There's the curse of the initiated to talk about there. This is a whole topic in and of itself. Sorry, water's falling. It rained yesterday. I'm in California. Yeah, don't fight it. Just don't ever try to go head to head with the core, because the core's bigger, the core's older, the core's stronger, and it's gonna fucking win. Learn to love the suck. All right, the other person, Lindsay Cole. Thank you. This was super helpful to listen to because I'm an ROTC right now. And a lot of the advice that I've been hearing about how I can improve and do better is proving to be very unhelpful for me. Your video, on the other hand, whatever issues that are very specific to what I have been struggling with. Also, I was wondering, did you notice if there are successful intuitive types among officers, or if there are mostly S types as well? Not as many do you think. You see a lot of officers that are S types. And you see a lot of officers that are N types. I don't know if it's a higher percentage or anything. I will say that you can definitely tell the difference with an officer. Can't necessarily tell the difference just by meeting a troop. But officers, obviously you want the N types for most cases. There's a funny thing, because I'm an engineer, I rarely served under an actual officer. As a matter of fact, all the officers that actually were my personal officer, like my platoon commander, were always warrant officers, which is who end up in those fields. They don't want to take some kid out of 4 years of college, who's 22 years old, and put him in charge of engineers or Intel Marines or something like that if they can help it. Unless they're really fucking smart. Instead, they would rather have a dude who's been doing that job for 20 years. or for at least 10 years, you know what I mean? Like, one of my warrant officers has been doing it for 10 years, and so that's why they made him a warrant officer. He was a mechanic for 10 years. I was maintenance chief, and so I always worked for the maintenance chief. I was in AV battalion, 2nd AV battalion. I also spent time in CAB over in Japan, which is cool. CAB's the shit. If you can go to Japan, go to Japan. I took 3 years of Japanese in high school, and I know very little Japanese. I took it, and from that point on, I was a deer at cotton headlights in that class, but they thought I was the coolest fucking guy on the planet when I was over there, because I could speak like 3 words of Japanese, and for some reason, every Marine that goes over there refuses to learn Japanese, like, even a little. And they have, like, the dumbest attitude about it. Go over there, learn the littlest amount of Japanese, and the locals will fucking love you. That was my experience. It's a little different over there than it is over here. There's a lot of different laws and attitudes and stuff like that, and it really sucks to be stuck on base. But their bases are better. They got really good at making their bases just more convenient in general, so that people would stop threatening to kill themselves and shit like that from being stuck on base for so long. We had a bar on our base that had like a $2 happy hour every night, and would give your table a keg for like $40 or something, $30, something like that. Like, it was insanely cheap. So there was no real incentive. I mean, if you just want to get wasted, there was no incentive to go to get drunk off base. You were way better off getting drunk on base. And that was clever. It was cheaper to get drunk on base. It was easier to get drunk on base. And it was safer to get drunk on base. Like, ideas like that. They made their bases just better than the ones in the States. So you're not quite as stressed out on them. Boy, I'm way off topic. It's interesting to hear you say that in the ROTC program. I went over issues that you've been having. I made that video when I'd been awake for like 26 hours or something. I didn't sleep last night either. It's just who I am. But it's interesting you say it in the ROTC program. You got to understand that I have zero experience with that. Yeah, I'm a non-commissioned officer, but you're talking about a whole other world than me. They really are totally different. Boy, I could make a video just talking about a female officer. That is a unique place in the military. I don't know if you're specifically going for the Marine Corps. It's an ROTC program, which could mean Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, or the Army. Odds are it's the Air Force, but it seems like you're talking about the Marine Corps. Okay. First off, before anything else, female officer in the Marine Corps, you need to get some certain warnings that you're not going to receive from anyone. Though you've probably heard, but I need to enforce these as hard as I can. If you have any sort of feminist, social justice beliefs or attitudes whatsoever, you need to throw those out the window if you plan on going to the United States Marine Corps. Not because they're wrong or bad or anything like that, but because you don't fucking have time for that. It's very much focused on functionality over like what's morally right and morally wrong. Because you don't sort of, the whole attitude is built on the idea that you don't have fucking time for that. Your job is to get those men out of there, you know what I mean? Get those boys home alive. And the whole time that you are in the military, people are going to tell you or say behind your back constantly that anything you do that is right is because you're a woman. You're being recognized for it, whereas they do right shit all the time. They don't get recognized for it. And they're right. However, of course you deserve to be recognized, right? That's also right. But you're going to get recognized more than them because you're a woman. And every single time that you fail, they're going to be saying behind your back, it's because you're a woman. And in some cases, they're right. It's fucked up, but it's true. So do not go in with an attitude where you're going to be telling people that to check their privilege, or that they can only do something because they're a white male, and if you're a white male, you can do the same thing, because you are so fucking badly outnumbered. This is the one time where I'm actually going to very seriously express the sentiment, kind of become one of the guys. I hate hearing that for women in boardrooms and things like that. Do it for the Marine Corps, if that's where you're going. Just don't act like you're special, even though you're an officer, which is a good thing in a lot of respect, because officers stand out, period. They're supposed to. Makes sense, right? But they have to hold themselves to a higher standard than everyone else, too. They can't fail. Otherwise, like, everyone sees that failure. Everyone feels that failure. If I can do something and my officer fails at it, it doesn't matter, because he is the human representation of my unit. That's what an officer is. They're the human representation of the people that they lead. They're supposed to be the best of them, or better than all of them. So you really do have to be better than everyone else. As far as, like, with your troops, I mean, if you trust them and stuff like that, I had a female officer. I was in a combat unit and actually got to see its very first females. But I had a female officer who is 140-pound Asian chick, weighed 5'4", who was a complete badass. Like, one of the toughest human beings I have ever met, mentally and physically. Or willpower and mind. And she was, I don't think it counts as admin, logistics. She was a logistics officer. And she only had one Marine that she was in charge of, even though she was a first lieutenant. Just that was the only Marine in the unit with her MOS field. But her attitude was so good, and she was just so fucking cool about everything. And so, like, when it came down to it, we went and played some war games in Virginia. And she came along, and she didn't have a platoon, right? She only had one Marine in her MOS field in the entire battalion. So she, her troop, or sorry, he was a corporal. Her NCO was just talking to me when we were out there. They were saying, yeah, they're out there, but they don't have a platoon, so they're not slotted for any of the war games that we're playing, because it was like, first platoon's going to go do this, third platoon's going to go do this, things like that. And so I was like, fuck that, dude, join mine, because he was my friend. And I was like, we could definitely bring you along. No one's going to complain if I want to bring you along. Everyone in my shop loves you. Everyone in my office loved the guy. It's a fantastic guy, and he went through combat school with me. And he brought his officer. And she said, I'm not here to lead or get in anyone's way. And I'm along for the ride. I'm here to learn. And that was an amazing attitude for her to have. And it was a blast to bring her along. And it was the first time in my career, and really the only time in my career, where I was really smacked in the face with the advantage. And don't misunderstand that. She wasn't on, like, equal ground. We had an advantage over other people by having her there because she was a woman. The fact that she weighed the rest of us, weighed way less than the rest of us, made her easier to lift up to get the second story of buildings when we were in MOUT training. The fact that she was smaller than the rest of us got her in and out of cramped vehicles quicker than the rest of us. She could get in and out of her armor quicker. She was a smaller target for when we were going in the front door of a building. She would go in first. And it was because the short guy always goes in first. That's how we did it. And she heard that and said, well, I'm the shortest person here. And we said, well, you're the officer. And she was sort of like, not right now, I'm not. You know what I mean? Like, I want to learn the right way to do this. And so she wanted to learn how to be the first person in a building because no one ever treated her that way. Because one, she was an officer, and two, she was a woman. And so she didn't go through the same combat school that I did. And her attitude was just incredible. And when it came down to grappling, when it came down to like actually getting in a fight, she went 5 times with me. And I weighed 200 pounds. I had 60 pounds on this woman. And was in incredibly better shape than her. And still was just like, nope, let's try it again. You know what I mean? Like every single time. And it wasn't some fetishized thing. No, she was serious because she said, you know, even, it doesn't matter if I'm a 130 pound Asian chick or whatever, you know what I mean? I might have to fight a 200 pound guy to the death. And that was her attitude about it, because that could happen. And that just made me respect her. You know, no other officer, except for like 1 or 2 of the Mustangs or the warrant officers, would ever get down in the McMap pit and wrestle me to get better. They would do it to, you know, like prove something or to have fun. You know what I mean? She did it to get better. And when she realized that she just wasn't going to be able to overpower me and the best she could hope for was a stalemate with someone my size, she really did tackle the question of what to do if she ended up in that situation. And the result we ended up with was get really fucking good with a knife. And by the time I left the Marine Corps, because she got to do whatever she wanted with her free time after that, she was probably the deadliest person I've ever met with a knife. Because she went crazy into McMap and learning how to be good with a knife. And you don't really get to train a lot with knife fighting, but watching her, she was fast, nimble, and accurate as sin. And I have no doubt she's going to go on to do great things, because she was just a badass chick with the right attitude. But you're going to hate life in the ROTC program for about your first 5 years. It's not going to be until a little while after you hit the fleet, which is going to be after you finish college and after you go through officer school. I can't remember its name. It's got a name. Officer something something school or whatever. It's not going to be until after you go through all that, after you go through officer combat school, and then after you go through your MOS school, that you're finally going to actually end up doing your job. That's the first time you're ever going to have any real freedom between now and then. So your road is fucking shit. Like, you're looking at 5 years of stuff you're just going to hate. It's probably a little bit better than me. You're probably encouraged to ask a little bit more questions than I was. Because, you know, they really do discourage us to ask questions, because you don't ask questions, you follow orders. And so when you're a private, they don't care. You follow orders, shut up. Doesn't matter what the aim. Even if it was a good question, they don't fucking care. You shut up and follow orders. And I really had to force myself not to listen to that because it sucked. And I got screwed up a bunch of times in my career because I asked too many questions. But I didn't care. I asked too many questions, and eventually, yeah, that paid off. Do I recommend it? No. There's a time and place. JJ did tie buckle. It's one of the acronyms they use in the Marine Corps. It's the longest one. It stands for a bunch of values or whatever the fuck. I honestly don't remember them all. I don't fucking care anymore. I don't have to know them. But the one I always forgot when I was learning them was tact. Only one I can remember now is tact. It's like justice, judgment. I don't know. Justice, judgment, discipline, integrity, something, you know, whatever. But one of them is tact. The reason I remember is because that was one of the worst things I was at as a new Marine or as a recruit or whatever. I was bad at tact. And it was one of the most important things for me to learn. And it was one of the most useful things for me to learn. Stuff like when you walk up to 2 people who outrank you, the first words out of your mouth are "excuse me." It can be "excuse me, gentlemen," "excuse me, ladies," "excuse me, sir," "excuse me, sergeant," whatever. Start with "excuse me" if they outrank you. Because it's really hard to yell at someone who just said, excuse me. Like to turn on them. Learn to say that all the time whenever you approach anyone. Like train yourself to do it now. It'll pay off later. You walk up and you say, excuse me, Sergeant, or excuse me, sir, or excuse me, gentlemen, or excuse me, ladies. I don't mean to interrupt, but I was wondering if you could help me with this, or I was wondering if you could tell me, or I was wondering if you could point me to the head or the restroom or whatever. Learn to say excuse me. And the other thing is you noticed in that video I said after the officer comes out and gives his plan and he says this is the plan, wait till everyone leaves, then say, okay, what about this, this, this? Don't do that in front of everyone. That's a big deal. You can question a plan as long as you don't do it in front of other people. That's what they're trying to teach you. If you have a question and it's a serious question, ask it in your one-on-one time. If it's really important, you'll remember it. So if you're getting a class and you're interrupting too much, write it down and ask the question after class. If you're being told a plan or something like that, wait until you have a moment alone, then ask your question. If you don't get a moment alone before the plan, wait till after the fucking plan. Unless it's a really good question. Unless it's a question like, whoa, won't that get us killed? Then fucking wait. And if you can't wait, then say, excuse me, can I please talk to you offline for a second? Can I go please talk to you alone for a minute? Walk away with them, then tell them your problem. Then ask your question. Don't do that shit in front of other people. It is a huge, huge deal. And it will make a world of difference for you. If you have a question, that's great. Ask questions. But do them offline. Don't do them in front of everyone. You've been taught your whole life, most likely, that asking questions is good. And that's right. Asking questions is good. But not when it can undermine that leadership. At least that's the view of the Marine Corps. So you have to play by their rules. Learn to play by those rules and you'll have a pretty easy time. I will say that the intuitive officers that I did have, I would argue were better people. Better men that I would rather follow into combat, since you asked that question earlier, in general. Introverts, kind of don't really want to follow them, which makes sense. They're introverts. They don't get along with people quite as well. It's not generally a question you're forced to ask yourself. Like, would I follow this guy into combat? But you should, and I did ask it all the time. What I found is that I usually would put people in one of 5 categories. There were people that I would follow into combat. There were people that I would not follow into combat. People I would shoot in the fucking back of the head than follow them into combat. They were rare, but they existed. I would rather shoot them in the back. Most of the guys next to me would. There were people that I didn't want to follow into combat, but I would. There were people that, they were just sort of there. Like they fall into the middle. And there were the people that I would like to follow into combat. If I could pick someone, they would be among the ones that I would pick. And then there's people that I actually wanted to follow into combat. Like, that is the motherfucker I want leading me. And they were all the most extroverted, most likable, most fun to get along with people. Because they made you trust them. They did a really good job making you trust them. My best example was a gunny who I met him. And he literally was like, hey, here's this Lance Corporal that's going to join your platoon for this field op, or this training cycle. It's a really long video, so I'm going to end it. Here's the Lance Corporal that's going to join you. He's going to be your welder. And he was like, all right, cool. Shook my hand. I'm like a Lance Corporal, and he shook my hand. He's a gunnery sergeant. He's amazing. He hired me. And then he was like, you like dice? And then lost $20 to me in a game of dice. Like, he was just a bad motherfucker. In that respect. Like, he was just so fuck the rank, and his attitude was amazing. But when it came down to it, and when I actually saw him deal with Marines that screwed up, you really got the attitude that he would burn his life to the ground. that he would destroy his own career. And that's how he made you feel. He would destroy his own career to make sure you didn't get screwed over. And that is the guy that I would follow into hell and back, because I just trusted him so completely. But he was a sensing type. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. So you get both. I wouldn't necessarily say that there's even a higher percentage of N types or anything like that. But they're different types. They have different jobs. They do different things. You know what I mean? N types are probably amazing in Intel MOSs and stuff like that. And I can name N types I have, but this is a 30-minute long video, so I'm gonna stop it here. So yeah, just more bullshit. Thanks for the comments, and I hope you like the video.